one morning, I just woke up. I said, well, I have to have it done. In about half an hour, I had a draft and had a solid idea what I wanted to do.
Hello, and welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is episode 41, a discussion with Ho-Fan Lee, the inventor of the Thumbport. Today's episode is sponsored by J&K Productions. They produce all of my episodes, from adding the intro and outro music to editing the audio and all post-production needs. Contact them for your next podcast project at jkproductions.media. Hello, Ho-Fan. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, Heidi.
Excellent. So you just got back from a soccer practice?
Well, my son's soccer practice.
Oh, fun.
I was being a chauffeur.
Excellent. Where are you right now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland.
Wow. So is it indoor soccer?
Yes,
Yeah.
It is. It's frozen outside at this time of year.
Yeah, my grandparents are originally from Ohio, and so I know the area pretty well, and it's cold in the Midwest, so I can't imagine soccer outdoors.
Sure not.
Oh, shoot. So if you like, we can get into questions about your invention, the Thumbport.
Sure, please go ahead.
Great. For those who may not know you, could you give your background and inform the listeners how you came about the invention?
Sure. My background, I'll go back a little bit from how I grew up. It has something to do with the fact that I was interested in figuring out mechanical things on the flute. I grew up in Taiwan and started playing the flute since the 5th grade. Mostly self-taught until after my first college, where I majored in metallurgical engineering, then military service. Because of the love for flute playing, I went on to study flute full-time at the Royal Academy of Music in London. It then turned into a journey of 8 years in the musical academia, of which 5 took place in the U.S.
Wow.
Before going to England, I thought it might be a good idea to learn some chops on repairing the flute. And by the way, I'd been taking flute apart since 13.
Wow.
Mr. Speedy Tanaka at Altus Flutes arranged for me to apprentice there for 3 months. Although the flute mechanism isn't very complex, the training did make me appreciate the thought and effort put into making it work well together. Well, then, the effect was that it set me up for some pocket money, in during my studies. Because of my repair skills and the engineering training, I made friends with and met some extraordinary people. Among those, a gentleman named Norman Clare, who brought me into this realm of old French flutes, on top of my professor, Mr. Bennett's enthusiasm in them.
Wow.
That was Mr. William Bennett.
Yeah.
And through that association, I met Mr. Albert Cooper.
Oh, wow.
And also I learned some things in literature, psychology, and linguistics because of this gentleman, Norman Clare. He was at the time like the dean of Italian study at London University.
Okay.
And also an amateur flute player. And he studied with a range of people, including Geoffrey Gilbert, and had lessons with Mr. Bennett and Alex Murray, who invented the Murray system.
Yes.
Who I later on actually studied with as well. That's why I mentioned this gentleman, Norman Clare. He gave me a lot of insights into how the evolution of modern flute.
Wow.
Yeah. And I saw many examples of old French flutes, how delicately and well-made. It was an amazing journey. Then through my studies, especially in the state side, I spent a lot of time calculating things in acoustics, temperament, and the tuning. This was all related to flute scale design or playing in tune, that type of realm.
Sure.
After settling in Cleveland, Ohio, for family reasons, I started a business. It's called ABA Music. That's how I started doing flutes and as well as thumbports. I'd like to think of myself mainly as a flute designer. Through the understanding of the mechanical aspects of the instrument, the birth of the thumbport became possible. That's pretty much the background I like to give.
Yeah. No, that's good. I love, man, what a rich history between Mr. Bennett and Alex Murray. What an amazing flute background to launch from.
Well, I didn't know there was another choice.
Oh, man. And Alex Murray, is he not related with the Alexander technique?
Initially wasn't, but he is, or he has been an Alexander technique teacher.
Yes.
He has an Alexander technique school, but he was not the initiator or the inventor of it.
Right. But he promoted it. And when he taught at the University of Illinois.
Yes. He and his wife, they had a school there, and I think she was the main force.
Wow. The only reason I knew that is because one semester at Texas Tech, when I was studying my graduate studies, I took a semester of Alexander Technique. And lo and behold, my teacher for that course, his name is Luc Venier, and he's a dance instructor at Texas Tech University. One of his degrees was at U of I in Champaign, and his Alexander Technique teacher was Alex Murray.
Ah, yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a very small world.
Yes. I got in touch with Alexander Technique, while I was in England. So I was surprised too when I went to University of Illinois.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is so neat. Thank you for that background.
Sure.
So what was it? Was it your own flute playing that you wanted to design the thumbport? Was it a solution that you were solving for a student?
It had to do with a range of things, but to begin with, I permanently damaged both of my pinkies in my early teens.
Oh, wow.
Although they're not completely disabled, but both of them had some defects. After that, holding the flute for an extended period of time or working on taxing scales had been a challenge.
Okay.
And then I learned the modified Rockstro position from Mr. Bennett, which eased up the tension a little bit.
Oh, good.
However, I still couldn't do, heavy exercises or practice for hours. That's too long for me. It would be very painful. Then after I moved to Shaker Heights, Ohio, I met Michel Debost, who was teaching at Oberlin.
Okay.
I made a phone call and asked him if I would be permitted to audit his class or lessons, and he warmly welcomed me.
Oh, wow.
So through observing his teaching, I saw something repeatedly. One theme, among other things, was the stability.
Okay.
So he talked about it, adamantly all the time, really. So that made me think that stability wasn't my own problem only. It was a prevailing problem for flute players.
Okay.
So I got into thinking, if we can address this problem with a device or, otherwise. So that's how I started thinking about creating the thumbport.
Amazing. I was not expecting. I am so glad that the true story or the real life situation is better than how I imagined it. That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was not expecting that, but I don't know. It's magical. Do you know what I mean? Because you have that history and that lineage of Michel Debost and Oberlin Conservatory and just your background of you noticing it in your own playing and with the issues you were having with both of your pinkies, but then noticing, like you said, a theme throughout all the flutists at Oberlin, and you said, okay, how can we solve this?
Yes.
That's great.
It took a long time to realize the real problem or real problems were.
So since you have an engineering background, you were able
Yes.
to start designing it on your own, or was there other team members involved throughout the process?
It was basically just myself. I did talk with some other people, but mostly it's myself figuring out the physics of it.
Okay. So from the conception, this idea, let's solve this problem in Oberlin, to
Yes.
production, how long did that take?
It took about 6 months until it solidifies or say materializes. But it took only about half an hour to design it. Incubation period is about 6 months. You think about the mechanics of it, then the flute. Then you think about what materials to use and how to attach to the flute, whether it should be fixed or movable. After all that consideration or speculation, then one morning I just woke up. I said, well, I have to have it done. In about half an hour, I had a draft and had a solid idea what I wanted to do.
Wow, how inspirational. You just said, okay, this just is going to go down and I'm going to do this and bam.
I love a word, which is serendipity.
Yes.
You just dream in your sleep, and then the solution came. You just get up and say, that's it.
Wow.
Eureka.
You literally slept on the idea and eureka.
Yeah, I wish it was a more splendid story, but...
No, I love it because it just shows you, if you show up for yourself, especially the younger listeners, because we have a lot of flute students that listen to this podcast, but that just goes to show you that if you put your mind to something, and you talked about incubation, you talked about how you were letting all these ideas, simmer, and then you woke up and you just did it. You didn't delay. You just went right to work and it's complete. And I think that's really good for the younger listeners to hear that.
Yes. And that we do need to sleep over things.
Yes, of course. You do. Because the mind has to put it all together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the next question, I don't know if it really pertains to you and your invention. I was going to ask you if you had any obstacles along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. To identify the root of problems, it took a while. You will have to do some mechanical analysis, although in the end it seemed obvious and simple. But in the beginning, it wasn't that obvious because we take for granted how we hold the flute. We get so used to it, or we see other people, or we hear from other people say or instruct us how to do it. So we just assume so much of what comes in from an admired person that's going to be useful, going to be correct. So you have to put all the things you learned aside first and just look at the object or objective in front of you. Start afresh. So I consider the mechanics of the flute position or holding of it. Then we'll have to consider the modified or the so-called Rockstro position. Some people say a Rockstro alignment. And both the original and the modified. I believe like Jimmy Galway, he uses more like Rockstro position. So he put his thumb behind the flute tube, the right thumb, and push forward. And then Mr. Bennett supports it at an angle, but still somewhat from behind. That's the so-called modified Rockstro position. So you have to see the merits of all those things and think about how to go about it and fit into the existing flute pedagogy or methodology. Because technology itself doesn't really, wouldn't help unless you have some kind of path to it. You have to realize in the way that people could accept.
No, that makes sense. Definitely.
Then finding a manufacturer is another thing, because if I wanted to make one for myself, that only solves my problem.
Right.
But my idea was to provide a solution that would help many people. Of course, in my dream, it would be all the people. But you know how realistic that is, right?
Yeah.
So in order to manufacture it in quantity, then you have to find a manufacturer. It starts to involve finding the right people. You have to do modeling. You have to... Some things that a normal person like me wouldn't know.
Okay.
So fortunately, I found a friend at the time who was into manufacturing things, and they helped me to make drawings, diagrams, and find the right factory.
Okay.
To do it. Then after that, you have a product, because this product is relatively small and the market is relatively small.
Right.
In order for a mature product to come out, usually we have to go through prototyping. You have to send it to the market to have people try it and modify it. But we didn't have that luxury. So it was very risky. After I complete the first batch of product, I sold a few. The reception was a little, lukewarm.
Okay.
I had some feedback saying there was a breakage. So I had to go back and modify the mold to make it more durable.
Okay.
But that was very, very beginning, only the very first batch. Then we changed it. So that's also the obstacle, because we simply can't or couldn't afford the same development cycle as the consumer products. Then the persuasion part, to persuade players to use this product is also a huge challenge. So I would say there were tons of obstacles along the way.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of like Thomas Edison's famous quote, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's what it reminds me of.
Yes. It seemed easy from mechanical analysis, had to be a certain way. But then as human beings, we all have different hands, different fingers.
Right.
Different lengths, of fingers. People would say, "Oh, my thumbs are too long to use your product. It won't work." They would say, "Oh, this and that," because of their habit,
Okay.
It's all credible. It's all credible because we're human beings. We do what we like to do. We do what we're used to do. To change what we've been doing for 20 years, there's got to be some good reasons.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're creatures of habit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the saying.
Yeah. So when you were overcoming these different obstacles that you just listed, what resources did you use throughout this journey? I heard you mention a lot of and referring to people as being your solution. Well, this person came into my life and helped me with this aspect, and etc. Besides the networking aspect, were there any books, or was it just really trial and error?
I mentioned that I had an engineering background.
Okay.
However, the real math or physics being used were only middle school level.
Okay.
I would say that, of course, the understanding from the college level physics helped. The technology being used was only middle school level. This is why I would say to the listening youngsters out there, don't dismiss the usefulness of anything you study at school at the moment.
Okay.
Because one day they will come in handy. And many people say to me, well, you study temperament tuning, acoustics, because you're an engineer, so you could understand that.
Right.
But this is what I would say, the maths I used to understand those subjects was only middle school level physics.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not like if you didn't study engineering, you wouldn't be able to understand different temperaments or tuning or inventing something like Thumbports. Yeah. Then I would say all other related products like Bo-Pep, Thumbelina, and so on, they all gave me some thoughts, some perspective into making the Thumbport.
I see.
Although there was no one device that really inspired me. I would say they all inspired me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I would also mention that someone in the early process reminded me that there was a device or an option invented back in the early 1900s, very similar to it. I mean, to their eye, I was copying that device.
Oh, I see.
I would refer the audience to a book by Nancy Toff.
Oh, yes.
The Development of Modern Flute. Curiously, it was also published by University of Illinois.
Oh, wow.
For 1986, that's the edition I had. In the book, on page 166,
Okay.
there is a figure 130.
Huh.
It was taken from the catalog of Otto Mönich in Leipzig, 1931.
Okay.
On the diagram or on the illustration, there was this device called right thumb support in German.
Oh, wow.
I can't pronounce it, but I will tell you in English it means right thumb support.
Okay.
You will immediately see the similarity between that and the Thumbport.
Oh, wow.
However, I would say this to you, the fundamentals used in that device and the Thumbport are totally different.
Okay.
Yeah. That device by Mönich was a device that supports the flute a little backward. It's not designed to balance the flute.
I see.
Yeah. On the other hand, the Thumbport is designed to balance the flute, not to support the flute.
Right. Yeah, because just how naturally the back of the flute has the rods, and it makes the flute heavier on the backside.
Yes, absolutely.
So us as flutists having to counterbalance that weight and bringing everything forward so that way our technique is, supreme. Yeah. Oh, I'll have to go to my bookshelf now and pull off my Nancy Toff book and look at that. Thank you for that reference.
Sure. It's at the lower right-hand corner.
Okay.
On that figure.
Okay. Very interesting. So you kind of already did this, but to summarize this interview, could you give us your elevator pitch for the product? Why would a flutist purchase a Thumbport, and what solutions does it solve?
Sure. First of all, to support an inventor and make me rich.
Naturally.
Well, truthfully, I'm most interested in making flute players enjoy more and suffer less in the long run.
Nice.
This is because of my background. When I was young, already damaged my fingers, right? So I feel for people who might or who have already damaged their hands or fingers. I'm also curious in exploring the optimal individual holding positions because everybody would be a little different. People have long fingers, as I mentioned before. They might have to make an effort to change their position.
Okay.
Because if we don't put our thumb somewhat behind the flute, there's no way to counter one rotation.
Right.
Which on the right-hand side would tend to go backward.
Yes.
So somehow there is an effort or some vector has to happen there. For most people with long fingers, they do one of two things. One is their little finger, the right pinky, would push the flute forward on the E-flat key. The other one is they use the index finger, what would you say, the third digit, that hold on to the flute to push forward.
Yeah.
I'm sure most professionals and teachers, they wouldn't agree to do that.
No.
But to counter that rotation, something has to be done. That's something, for individuals to figure out, although the Thumbport is trying to address that rotation and force your finger to go a little backward. But it may not fit everybody, I would say. So that I would be happy to know how people deal with these problems. And then the Thumbport is a device that corrects the inherent imbalance of the flute construct.
Okay.
And the way we hold it, we need to understand that the Thumbport is not a support aid, like a stand to take the weight away. You still have to hold, the flute player still has to bear the weight of the instrument.
Right.
We can't defy this gravity.
Right.
When used as intended, it lessens our effort to support and balance the flute. It has effects to the whole body as well. I hear this report from various people. They would say their left hand now is more relaxed. And they would say that both shoulders now are down. Then as well as the torso, all may benefit from it. Because there are at least 2 torques on our holding system. So if we try to torque it back, sometimes we do it not only with our hands, we actually use our body to twist.
Yes.
So I would only say that it may address some of these problems.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it just sounds like what you were saying about the shoulders and the torso and all the other body parts. By having that balance corrected, we can release tension. And if we're releasing tension as flutists, our sound and our tone is going to open up and soar better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. One aspect of this is that many flute players can balance a flute very well, can hold it very well.
Uh-huh.
They probably think they don't need such a device.
Mm-hmm.
Just as you were saying, that involves some kind of effort.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can take away these, say, strains or stresses or efforts, then we have more relaxed body or even mind to deal with, musical problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can even envision all of my younger students who and I'm sure a lot of listeners out there who are teachers can relate, where the little hands the fingers are actually holding up the flute. So when they're playing like a D, and then they switch to a C with less fingers, the flute rotates and rocks so much because they were relying on that D fingering to keep the flute up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right on, I would say. Yeah. I would also offer another observation. Although we want to relieve our right pinky from balancing the flute or holding the flute, it's not without some benefits to have some effort on that little finger.
Uh-huh.
Because when we play the flute, we have to, many players would like to change the pitch minutely or change the tone minutely.
Yes.
I know most schools do not advocate rotating the flute.
Uh-huh.
But from my observation, everybody does.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so minute, we don't know.
Right.
Then how do we get that minute rotation?
Huh.
That comes from a little finger.
Yeah.
Or other fingers.
Uh-huh.
But when you open fully, that's the only finger was little finger to do that. When you're holding the flute, like you were saying, the D, then you do use other fingers to change the position.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I would say. So I wouldn't say that the complete relaxation is our goal.
Uh-huh.
But then you have no flexibility in doing other things.
Right. Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about the tuning and just the very ever so slightly ruling it out or turning it in for pitch issues.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Very neat. So is there anything in summation that you want to share with the listener about the process or you or the product? Any last final thoughts?
I would just offer an idea.
Okay.
Which is listed in with your picks for the week.
Okay.
The second item, which is a book called The Lost Art of Listening. We need to listen to ourselves first to know what we want to do and we like to do. Then we need to observe other people. After accepting what we want to do, then we need to observe other people, to hear, to listen, to see what they want. Because the solution ultimately is for more people than yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, if we have a product, let's just be commercial for 1 second. If the product is to be sold, then we're not selling it to ourselves.
Right.
If something that's going to help, we are probably thinking about helping more than ourselves. So if we observe and we listen to what people want, then we can come up with a reasonable solution. On the other hand, it's never going to be possible to please everybody.
True.
So we need to see what we want to solve. And instead of thinking how I can sell millions of this product.
Yeah.
I don't know if that gives some representation in what I've been doing.
Oh, definitely. I think it summarizes who you are and what you've been doing beautifully. I mean, you're boiling it down. I love this saying, keep it simple, smarty, where you're just saying, like, what do I want to do? And observing other people. And I think that just it boils down to just something so simple like that. We don't have to overcomplicate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of
explaining for me.
Yeah, it resonates very well with me. So you mentioned that was one of your picks. I love it. Do you have any other picks for us?
So I have another pick, which is a book named The Botany of Desire.
Okay.
A plant's eye view of the world. So that also goes hand in hand with listening theme, which my late friend Norman Clare taught me. That we simply don't know how to listen, a lot of people. Listening is not just hearing things. If we take a different view from the plant's view, how the world is evolved, how they want us to do certain things, instead of we want the plants to do things for us.
Right.
Like the apple is so sweet. So we eat apples, we grow them, so it becomes available in different regions and a different species. How do we not know? It's because they want to multiply, so they become sweet. So we are persuaded to spread it.
I see.
Yeah. So by looking at the 4 different plants Michael Pollan introduced, then we see the world from a totally different view.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. There is also a documentary on Amazon.com made by the same author.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would just bring up 2 plants in the book. One is apples. The other one is tulips.
Okay.
I think everybody loves those. So it will be an interesting read, or at least the documentary, the video will be very interesting.
I can't wait to check that out. My listeners know that I am very holistic with my body, and I had to kind of be candid when you were talking about your pinkies and the disabilities that you went through with your pinkies. I had hand problems for a while, and I did not like the solutions that the Western doctors were giving me. It seemed very abrasive, and I didn't want to go the route of surgery. And so I did research about plants and diet and exercise and essential oils. And so anytime somebody mentions fruits or, like you said, the apple and flowers, tulips, I get really excited because we're looking at the world and our body and our mind in a holistic way. And I think that's very natural and organic.
Super.
Yeah.
Super.
Thank you for that pick. I can't wait to check out the documentary and the book. I'll have to send you a message after I read it and watch it.
Please do. Please do. I have a final pick.
Oh, please.
This will please all the flutists,
okay.
I believe. It's a YouTube video.
Okay.
Or audio. We all know this piece by Fauré, Morceau de Concours.
Yes.
However, it's played by Stephen Isserlis, a British cellist.
Oh, cool. I have not heard about that.
I would encourage everyone to take a crack at it, and see what different approach there can be.
Oh, neat.
Also, there's some clips from William Bennett's summer school that the cellist is coaching student playing this piece.
Oh, cool.
I think everyone can search for those clips, so I didn't include in there.
Neat. Oh my gosh, thank you for those great picks. I love all of them. So I will offer my 3 picks.
Yes, please.
The first one is journaling. I find a lot of great benefits for myself, and I see my students getting that chance to reflect and write down things that either they're feeling or things that they're noticing, observing, and being able to take the moment just to let it simmer and write it down, pen and paper, I think really helps with the whole reflective process.
Yeah, absolutely. Sleep over them.
Yes, it goes back to the beginning of the interview.
Yes, yeah.
I love it. My second pick is an Audible book, and I just started listening to it, so I haven't got into it too far just yet, but it's titled Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, and it's a psychology book. Oh, have you read it?
Yes, I have.
Oh, wow. Did you like
It's a
it?
great book. Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Yes.
I just started the first chapter or so I'm not far into it, but I like it a lot already. So I can't wait to see how it pans out.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get plenty out of it.
Yeah? Oh, neat. I'm more excited now. And my third pick is a movie about Beethoven, and it's titled Immortal Beloved. And like most movies that may be biographical, it is somewhat historical, but Hollywood has done a number on it too with,
Yes.
to help with the sales and whatnot and to give it more drama. But
Yes.
so that's my disclaimer out there for the music history student. Don't take this movie verbatim because there are definitely Hollywood twists added to it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Ho-Fan Lee, for your time and your energy. And I learned so much from you about you, your background, and the process it took to invent and produce the Thumbport.
Well, thank you, Heidi, very much for giving me this opportunity to express a little bit of myself, which I'm not used to.
Yeah.
I hope it was all worthwhile for everybody.
Oh, of course. Definitely. There's a lot of great gold nuggets that you gave us.
And I'm trying to keep the commercial part out of it, and I hope I was successful.
Yes, definitely. It was great to get into your mind and your way of thinking. We learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you have a great rest of your Sunday afternoon, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. Me too. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Today's episode is sponsored by J&K Productions. They produce all of my episodes, from adding the intro and outro music to editing the audio and all post-production needs. Contact them for your next podcast project at jkproductions.media. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. For more information, please visit HeidiKBigay.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review in the iTunes store. Let's talk about flute.